Well, good evening, folks. It's the real Captain Kirk here. It's the 16th of January here, 2022. Calm before the storm. We're actually not in our normal offices here today, so we're remote here, getting ready for the storm moving up the East Coast. Bills game missed the storm coming up here, but they didn't miss the cold. It was 7 degrees at game time. They beat the New England Patriots pretty handily, but it was the fourth coldest football game in Bills history. Obviously not the coldest NFL game ever. We'd have to go back to the Ice Bowl back on the end of December 1967 when Dallas played the Green Bay Packers and Green Bay won 21-17. But minus 13 degrees was the record cold NFL game. Here today we're watching a big storm. Again, it's not going to really be a nor'easter. It's more of an inland. It's, again, put this 150 miles to the right of this line here, and it would have been a much bigger blizzard for the entire major metropolitan areas of the East Coast. Right now, it looks like those areas from D.C. to Philly to New York are going to go quickly from snow to rain, and the heaviest snow is going to be more in the Appalachian Mountains and toward Pittsburgh and in the western part of the Appalachians here. So here's a big storm. Tons of ice down in North Carolina. That's going to be pretty epic. Certainly going to be a lot of power outages, hundreds of thousands, if not potentially low millions of people losing power here. So hopefully folks are prepared. Looking at the 6-day snowfall map, so again, we can see here today, this is ending about 8 o'clock here tonight. Then the big storm here. Again, you see the big heavy snow is mostly west of the Appalachian Mountains. We're going to get some here in the eastern PA area, 2, 3, 4 inches. But again, it'll be a quick snow to sleet, to freezing rain, and then just plain old rain here along the East Coast. Looking at Tuesday here, storm starts to exit the northeast, and then not much really here for the rest of the week. Light snow, and this is just, again, as some more reinforcing cold air comes into the eastern U.S. So the 6-day total here, again, shows a pretty heavy foot plus. Certainly going to see some 12, 14, 15, 16-inch snow amounts, again, west of the Appalachian Mountains. Putting the snowfall here into perspective here, the 6-day outlook, about 142% more snow than last year for this 6-day period, 42% above average. 7th most in 37 years. So snowy week for sure. A recap here of last week, again on the world scale here. So looking at the week ending the 15th, and these are temperature maps versus last year on a retail calendar. Here in the U.S., about 1.8 degrees colder than last year, coldest in 3 years. Still 15th warmest. A lot of that was due to the extremely warm conditions in the western half of the country, extremely cold eastern half of the country. So it was a dichotomy of the U.S. here. A little bit wetter than last year, but still 9th driest in 37 years, below average. Snowfall up, 10% more snow than last year. Still 9th least in 37 years, below average. Still pretty cold up there in Canada, 13.4 degrees colder than last year, wettest in 4 years. These are really good trends, obviously, where you see that dark blue for seasonal merchandise sales. Auto batteries fail in this kind of weather. So again, a lot of good news here for winter merchandise in those dark blue areas. UK a little bit warmer than last year, about average. Europe a little bit warmer, actually still below average, even though they were warmer than last year. Russia quite a bit warmer than last year. This time last year, Russia was getting in the middle of a major polar vortex. China a little bit warmer, warmest in 7 years. Australia a little bit warmer. They've had some record heat in parts of Australia lately. Over in Brazil, a little bit cooler, coolest in 4 years, but just again, go to the other part of the South America, and Argentina just blistering with record-shattering heat down in Argentina. Looking at the maps inset left are the trends versus average. Looking at this week here, 16 through 22 January here in the U.S., about 5.1 degrees colder than last year, coldest in 3 years, 14th coldest in 37 years. So really, really cold here in the eastern half of the country. Behind this big storm system map inset left, there's temps versus OY. 227% wet in the last year, wettest in 3, about average, 17th wettest in 30 years. Snowfall obviously going to be up 107% more than last year, most in 3, 11th most in 37 years. A little overdone maybe in parts of this map here, but again, a snowy pattern here up the East Coast here the next 24 hours. The polar vortex is still relatively symmetrical. When it's symmetrical, it's strong. It keeps the cold Arctic air bottled up at the North Pole, but what we do see is that its favorite spot right now is eastern Canada and the northeastern U.S., Great Lakes. So it looks toward the end of the cycle here. It starts to get ragged, and when that breaks apart, look out, because then you can start to get some major Arctic outbreaks when this thing gets ragged, because it's just a matter of time before it heads in your general direction. So we'll have to watch it. It looks like it might be weakening here toward the end of this 14-day cycle here. Looking at next week, the last week of January here, hard to believe, but 1.9 degrees colder than last year, coldest in 3 years, 10th coldest in 37 years, below average national temperatures. Really, the cold is in the eastern half of the country, and temp map versus last year, so it's just, again, how much colder east and how much warmer west versus a year ago. Maybe dry here as we get cold like that. Tends to be in the middle of the polar air mass. Again, dry. Driest in 9 years. Third driest in 37 years. We'll see if it's that dry. Similar snowfall to last year and a little bit above average. So we'll end here with looking at the world 2-week outlook here. Again, this is just the aggregate. General theme is cold for the eastern half of the country, eastern Canada. Map inset left is the precipitation trends versus average. We hope you have a great Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend. It'd be great if we had some civil discourse like this gentleman had some decades ago. So with that, folks, have a great week, and we will be back here this time next week.